We have been hearing about BlackRock launching an XRP ETF for quite some time now. I think that this has been going on for roughly about 2 years. It's going to be 3 years next year during roughly around like the November timeframe, because I do specifically remember back in November of 2023 where this started to become a big rumor, and there was actually a full-on ETF filing that became, a meme because again, it was fake, but everyone ran with it anyways and, constantly said, hey, look at BlackRock's filing for an XRP ETF. But again, we kind of go back to that topic of, is BlackRock going to apply for an XRP ETF? Because it makes a lot of sense. Now, in this video, I want to go over all of this, and I really want to talk about why we could see BlackRock filing for an XRP ETF in 2026. Let's talk about Nate Garashi, because this is an ETF expert that has been following ETFs, talking about ETFs. I mean, this is someone that knows everything there is to know about ETFs. And he made a prediction. It was back in March of this year, and he said that I am ready to log formal prediction. BlackRock will file for both Solana and XRP ETFs. Solana could be any day. Think XRP once the SEC lawsuit concluded. Now, that did not happen after the SEC lawsuit concluded, but we're still very early in the ETF game. I do believe that Nate is correct here. In fact, it's a no-brainer, especially when we think about BlackRock and what they've been doing with crypto lately, which we'll also talk about here in a moment. But looking at this upcoming week, we do know that there's going to be a ton of discussions happening around the top 10 ETF launches, to date, which, by the way, XRP is one of them. Canary's XRP ETF recording well over $384 million in year-to-date flows, which is just insane. It was the most successful ETF launch of the year. But looking at this, I don't think that people realize that if you are BlackRock, just putting yourselves in the shoes of somebody that works at BlackRock that's looking at ETFs, and you want to, have the next big successful product. Looking at how the XRP ETFs have been stacking up against Ethereum, against Bitcoin, and even against Solana, it comes back to the idea of what's good for business. An XRP ETF product is good for business. We know that. So that's why we call it a no-brainer move. We know that at some point in time, BlackRock will file for an XRP ETF just off of the basis of good business. But we also know that on December 16th, we did get an update that BlackRock is adding 7 new crypto roles to scale their crypto ETFs, tokenization, and Asia strategy. Now, if we're looking at this, they do technically have 54 jobs on their website, all based around digital assets. And we can see that on their website. If you just look up digital assets, you can see every single one of their jobs. There's actually 6 pages of jobs just based around digital assets, including, of course, tokenization, cash funds, digital assets, and tokenization. We also have a few other things here in terms of digital assets. It looks as though they're preparing heavily to go all in on digital assets, not just in the US, but even outside of the US, like in Singapore, England. It's pretty crazy. They are expanding rapidly. Now, on top of that, I did specify ETFs, and there's 16 jobs in the ETF side of things. Now, yes, a lot of this is based in, the US, but also even outside of the US. So it seems as though they are getting ready to launch multiple ETF products next year, and they are prepared to go essentially all in on the crypto space. They want to make sure that they are prepared for the future because, again, everything that we've been hearing from BlackRock has been that crypto is the future. It's a core piece of, tokenizing every single asset, and this is them getting prepared for that, especially by adding even more job openings at BlackRock based around digital assets. But looking into some of these jobs, like for an example, the Vice President Director of Digital Asset Products Strategist, if we look into this, the responsibilities is to help build the iShares Digital Assets ETP offering. So this is going to, build out the product map, if you will, for more products, especially around, crypto ETPs. So I would argue that we're probably going to see a lot more ETPs and ETFs coming from BlackRock, looking into some of these other ones as well, like, just grabbing a random one. You can look into this and you can see that BlackRock is the #1 ETF provider with $3 trillion in assets under management in its iShares line of ETFs and #1 market share. They want to tap into crypto in a big way to help build the iShares Digital Assets ETP offering, establishing the firm's leadership in the space. So again, looking at all of these jobs, the main thing that we're looking at is that BlackRock is ready to expand their suite of ETF products, which includes beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I would argue Solana, XRP, they're going to be next up on the list. And just to really put it into perspective on how bullish BlackRock is on Bitcoin and crypto, on their website, we do have Bitcoin as one of the top investment themes for 2025, placing it alongside US T-bills and the Mag 7 in its year-end outlook. Pretty wild to see this coming from, again, BlackRock. And it's no big surprise considering the fact that the Bitcoin ETFs are now BlackRock's top revenue source. We see here that the firm's US listed spot Bitcoin ETF IBIT, launched in January of 2024, reached 70 billion in assets in record time and has generated hundreds of millions in fees. Just imagine what XRP could do if they launched an XRP ETF. I bring this up because we already know going into 2026, there's a lot of major analysts now predicting that the crypto ETF assets under management could double to 400 billion by the end of the year next year, driven by institutional adoption and new Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoin products. Yeah, there's a ton of products out there still awaiting approval. And if we're thinking about how big ETFs could be next year, you got to look at it like this. All right, if the market starts to rebound in a big way and we start to see an alt season form, the altcoin ETFs will see significant amounts of, adoption. They will see so many inflows, XRP being one of them. And if we're thinking about that, all of these predictions about how much, ETFs could bring in and, how much their assets under management could, reach, I think all of that gets tossed out of the window, because once FOMO really kicks in, it's questionable on how much demand these products could bring. Because again, most of the time when we think about ETFs right now, especially even XRP ETFs, the XRP ETFs have been doing very well in a down market. Imagine what they could do in an up market, which takes me to how the ETF industry has performed this year. Looking at 2025, the US ETF industry is having a historic year. US listed ETFs have attracted a record 1.4 trillion in net inflows so far in 2025. This surpasses the previous full year record by 300 billion and is more than double the 2023 figure. Furthermore, ETF trading volume is up to a record 57.9 trillion year to date, plus 630 billion higher than 2024's total. On top of this, the number of ETF launches in 2025 is up to 1,100, an all-time high, and plus 123% more than 2023 levels. The last time all metrics saw a record in a single year was in 2021. Investor demand ETFs is at a record high. And again, guess what altcoin had the best ETF launch of 2025? XRP. XRP ETF pulls 250 million in debut and smashes 2025 record. More launches expected. And yes, the Canary ETF made history because XRP had a breakout year and was the most successful ETF launch of 2025. And that's crucial to focus on, especially at a time where BlackRock is still looking to launch additional ETFs like this one, which was a staked Ethereum ETF. They filed for this back in the beginning of December. They're still 100% focused on ETF products. It's surprising that they're still locked in on Ethereum though, especially at a time where the outflows are extremely significant, over $200 million almost in outflows just last week. Now, if we're thinking about that logically, we go over to the most recent update that we got from Cointelegraph, which was just the ETF lows. Solana and XRP spot ETF saw net inflows on December 23rd, while Bitcoin and Ethereum spot ETFs saw net outflows. Bitcoin and Ethereum almost hitting 200 million and almost 100 million outflows. Solana only 4.2 million, and then XRP only about roughly 8.2 million. But again, we're still seeing more and more inflows to the XRP ETFs over all three, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. So if we think about this logically, what happens when XRP is having a great performance or a great day, or the market is bouncing back and crypto's everywhere yet again and FOMO is kicking in? What do we think the ETF products are going to look like? Well, they're going to experience significant inflows. And that's at a time where we are still seeing every single day more and more inflows to the ETF products for XRP. I mean, we are on a massive streak right now. And the craziest part about this is that we still don't have the big names like BlackRock, having an XRP ETF trading live yet. We go down here, BlackRock, Fidelity, VanEck. I mean, VanEck will most likely not, file for an XRP ETF. They've been very, they've been kind of negative towards XRP, which is surprising. I mean, at some point in time, they all flip, right? Like anyone that's still negative on XRP, they're going to flip on it, because we witnessed that all throughout 2024, all throughout 2025 as well. But looking at this, right, BlackRock and Fidelity, these players want to make money. At the end of the day, it's all business. They want to make money. If I'm looking at this market and I'm looking at the interest around XRP, the demand around XRP, the performance of the ETF products already. I mean, you got to look at the ETF products, most of these since their launch. Let's go up here real quick to spot markets, okay? So we'll just go off of Canary. Since its launch, over 338 million. Franklin Templeton's over 206 million. Bitwise is over 300 million. I mean, these products have been bringing in so much money. On top of that, they've been experiencing a historical, time in the market in terms of performance. And this is something that we cannot overlook. The market is down massively, retail sentiment is wiped out, and these products are still bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars. Not to mention how much money this is making for these ETF, issuers. So we think about what BlackRock is thinking. We think about, what is BlackRock looking into right now? They're looking into expanding their ETF base. We know that's true from their job application or their job listings on their application side of their website. So if we think about that, what better way to expand their ETF offering than offering, one of the most sought after altcoin ETFs in the market? Already looking at the ETF side of the game, 1.4 billion in assets under management already for the XRP ETFs. And again, almost 1% of the supply already locked in on ETFs. Just think about what BlackRock could do for the ETF side of XRP. I mean, think about just the amount of hype and FOMO that would arise if, XRP got an ETF filing from BlackRock. I mean, I'm not trying to look into something that's going to create hype and speculation and things like that, but I'm looking at this from a business point of view. If BlackRock, which is the largest ETF issuer out there in the world, launched an XRP ETF product tomorrow, it would most likely blow Canary's, performance out of the water. And it would be one of the most historical launches for ETF products, in my opinion, because again, there's so much demand for XRP. And I think that it's very clear by just seeing how successful the ETFs have been, while the market has been absolutely terrible. So in my opinion, BlackRock is most likely prepared to launch a ton of new ETFs next year, and XRP is going to be one of them. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.